You're listening to the Cinema Snarks podcast. I'm Larry,
And I'm Ren.
and we are going to tell you how we really feel about the unbearable weight of massive talent, aka that movie about Nicolas Cage.
That Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah.
People know what you're talking about when you say it.
But the unbearable weight of massive talent follows Nicolas Cage, an unfulfilled and facing financial ruin version of actor Nicolas Cage, who accepts a $1 million offer to attend a wealthy fan's birthday party. Things take a wildly unexpected turn when a CIA operative recruits Cage for an unusual mission. Taking on the role of a lifetime, he soon finds himself channeling his most iconic and beloved characters to save himself and his loved ones. Ren, this was
Yes,
one of your most anticipated films of the year, correct?
it was. It was.
Every time we saw that trailer, Ren was like hyped for this film.
Yes. This one and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
I think I've done a pretty decent job of selecting good ones, except for Dumbledore. I knew even when it was anticipated, I had no assumptions that it would be good. I just was like, I've been waiting for it for a long time.
Well, so apparently you
time,
enjoyed this film.
I did. I thought it was delightful and funny and cheeky. I will say it wasn't like it's hard because Everything Everywhere All at Once was like such a like, oh, I don't know how to like describe how incredible that movie was, so that this movie it's not this The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is not an incredible film, but it is delightful, it is good, it is enjoyable, and I had a good time in the theater watching it.
So I have to give like kudos to Nicolas Cage because yes, obviously he's like plastered on everything, but in many ways, watching this is kind of like watching 2 hours of therapy for Nicolas Cage. Like signing on to this project, he basically is like using film as a therapy session for himself.
Sure.
It's not only self-aware in the way that film, like it's not just fourth breaking walls and super meta, which it is, both of the meta for sure, but it's super self-aware from Nicolas Cage in the screenplay. Yeah, I mean, he's playing a version of himself, but in many ways that version is ripped straight from Nicolas Cage as a person.
I did make sure to do a little bit of research on like Nicolas Cage and everything. He would tell you that he's much more dedicated to his family than the Nicolas Cage in this movie is. Like that's kind of the crux of it, is that Nicolas Cage in this movie is a career obsessed lunatic, whereas Nicolas Cage in real life, he turned down a role in The Matrix and turned down roles in Lord of the Rings because he wanted to stay home with his kid, who was a child at that time. He didn't want to go live in New Zealand for 3 years. So I think that's important to keep in mind, is that this is absolutely a character, but it is a character based on himself. And what I think is really very Nicolas Cage about it is his larger than lifeism, his sublime extra. This is a man who lives in a performance. There was like a quote where I think it was Sean Penn or something, said that Nicolas Cage has transcended acting and he's just a performer now. Like he doesn't but anyways, this is this is why I was excited about this film, is that Nicolas Cage is kind of a cult figure. He's just like, he is a caricature of himself a lot of the time. He's also a really unique person, and we can talk about this more and like what makes him him. But this movie just does a really good job of like giving him an opportunity to kind of poke fun at himself. And these like okay, so like saying, oh, he's having financial troubles, right? That's the plot or whatever. Like this is fucking nothing compared to what actual Nick Cage's financial troubles were. Like this guy was like hundreds of millions of dollars in debt for years and years and years. And that's part of the joy of Nicolas Cage is because he is a crazy person because he's got apparently very little in the way of impulse control and is just like, it's a castle. I want it. I'm buying it. It's the most haunted building in America. I want it. I'm buying it. It's a Lamborghini. I want it. I buy it. It's a dinosaur skull. I want it. I'm buying it. Like he's got no like ability to make like financial decisions. So it was hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. And because he was so deeply, deeply in debt, and then he ended up having all of these problems with the IRS and owing them like $100 million. He's just took on every role that came at him. Yeah. Every single thing. Everything. And I think that's one of the delightful things about Nicolas Cage is that his resume, and this is one of those things that's like on display in this movie. You can't talk about this movie without talking about Nicolas Cage's career because like that's what this movie kind of is. But like he won an Oscar for incredible real performance in Leaving Las Vegas. Just heart-wrenching, destroying. Like it's one of those movies that I still like think about sometimes and remember. And then he also did fucking Wicker Man, where he's just like over the top and ridiculous, and it's like a cult classic because it's so bad it's good, that sort of a thing.
We all just we thank the heavens that he did Wicker Man because it was that bad.
Yes, yeah, and like I just
over the past decade. I mean, that's what I love is in that conversation. Over the past decade, I mean, he has taken on straight to Walmart stuff. Like, I mean, these films that Nicolas Cage has been in.
He did say, okay, so he has, as of 2022, he paid off his debts. So now he gets to be a little more selective about what he's going to be in. Now, in this movie, this Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, they kind of frame it a little bit more as he's trying to get back on top. And it seems like he has a monologue in the movie where he talks about how acting has always just been work for him. It's not about the like art of it. And that actually seems closer to something that Nicolas Cage would say than necessarily what this character, because this character seems to have this desire to do something important, this desire to like be back. Not that we went anywhere, which is the whole thing we do.
That's what I love though. One thing is I love that we got like superstar persona Nick Cage talking to Nicolas Cage. So we get Cage. Basically 90s Nicolas Cage.
90s, early
aughts who personifies himself and is really that driving force of don't you take on that shitty role. We're Nick FN Cage, you know, like we are the superstar of the world, damn it. And I thought it was hilarious. Spoiler alert, they make out at one point in this film. He makes out with himself.
Yes.
Literally. And I died because it was the most random, weird choice that could have been made at that moment or in this entire film, but I still loved it. But no, I loved that little side Nick Cage. Like that would
Nicky Cage. Nick Cage, Nicolas Cage, and Nicky Cage.
Oh, so good.
The young one. And they use the de-aging technology. And, you know, I generally find a lot of the time the de-aging technology is like uncanny valley. And it is no exception in this film, but it's okay because it's okay for it to be this weird, surreal version of him because the movie is a very weird, surreal sort of. It's surreal and at the same time, it's realistic. Like I mean, not like. But like it doesn't sit in a, you know, it's not Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's not like they're literally surrealist moments happening. It's not, you know, like even adaptation was surreal. This is just surreal of the mundane, if that's a thing, of just like, this is a crazy person's life. This is what would happen if you were just Nick Cage and your life was an insane movie star's life.
And then I also think obviously we have to talk about Pedro Pascal, who is
Oh,
our main supporting character in the film, almost a co-lead, I'd say. And he's amazing.
oh yeah, he's the co-lead. He is so cute in this film. He is so incredibly endearing. Uh, It's delightful. He's delightful in this film. And like, I don't know if I've gotten to see Pedro Pascal in a film be this sweet, this
Yeah.
like just absolutely lovable.
In
You
one
just want
sense,
to
you
like,
also feel like he's very much playing a version of his own self, because that's the thing. Every time outside of film, I see Pedro or see him interact with people or on Twitter, he just seems like the loveliest human being that could be. And then that's basically him just in this like mob boss, cartel character. But it's
yeah,
so cute. And they are so fun together. Like they have really good chemistry
yes, they're
together.
so fun. And okay, and here's another thing I really liked about this film. It's funny in a
Oh,
way that makes you laugh. There's so many comedies that come out now that are like comedies in quotations, and like they're funny, but they're never funny, ha ha. Nah, this shit
I
like
laughed out loud.
makes you laugh out loud, like the entire theater laughing out loud. And it's not cheap laughs. It's just genuinely like it tickles you and just makes you die. I mean, I guess having him make out with himself, I don't even know if that was like laughing or if
I
that
think
was just like nervous, like this is really weird.
shocked, just like shocked and appalled.
Yes, totally.
No, the jokes come at really good paces, like it's
Yes.
constant. It's really a funny film. And there's a lot of it's surprisingly, I mean, I guess not unexpected, because you kind of know a little bit of the tone from those trailers. You know, like
Yes.
generally what you're gonna get.
Yes.
I don't know, just sometimes there are some really unexpected jokes. There's an ongoing thing about Paddington 2 in this film
Oh, I loved
that I
that.
died.
Larry, tell
And
us right now, is Paddington 2 as great as this
yes,
film makes it out to
it
be?
is utterly
Yeah.
amazing, delightful. And
That's it. I was
I
just
think that's
thinking
what is
that
so good, is that this film knows. So it's very self-aware in a lot of ways. So we talked about Nick Cage being self-aware, but the filmmakers are also self-aware, because first of all, they're aware Nicolas Cage has become this internet cult sensation.
yes,
Like the internet and us, we love Nicolas Cage. Still,
this
for
man is unapologetically who he is.
we love the
We
madness.
love it.
And that's why this film, in the first place, is appealing to us. Second, film nerds of Twitter, film Twitter, as we call ourselves, and a lot of people in the film community generally just adore Paddington and Paddington 2 as these perfect little, just amazing films. And so when that comes out of his mouth, it's funny in just hearing it, because it's just like Paddington 2. And then it's funny when you're just like a film nerd who knows everyone loves Paddington 2 that watches it. So I don't know. I think the film is so good in that aspect, or even the film conversations when we go in
Yes.
and Pedro Pascal's character has this shrine room dedicated to Nick Cage and his film memorabilia.
He's got the golden guns from Face Off.
Oh, it's so good.
I think it's super fun. It's also just fun, like going back through Nick Cage's like body of work through this film, right?
Yeah.
And like, Pedro Pascal talks about how Guarding Tess was like this huge film for him and his father, and it was moving and and they don't go for the easy one. I mean, there is like one part at the very beginning where Tiffany Haddish's character is like, I feel like talking about Nick Cage gets off of the plane. They're like, it's Nick Cage. She's like, Nick Cage, like Moonstruck, motherfucker. He's like, no.
Gonna 60 seconds. That's what she's like.
Not in 60
References
seconds. Yeah, that's right.
Crudes and Crudes too.
I Cruise too. Yeah. So it's really fun because they reference a lot of his like less well known work, or just work that was like, it's not like They never talk about leaving Las Vegas even once. Nobody mentions his Oscar. Nobody mentions like it's mostly Crudes 2,
And I mean,
Face
Face
Off,
Off, and that's only thrown out like once or
Con
twice.
Air.
Even like the big
Yeah.
ones. Oh my God. Let me just say that also return to this. So that it opens with this girl and her like boyfriend watching Nicolas Cage movies, like watching a movie and just talking about how amazing he is. And we get this return moment for her at the end of the film that I just lived
Yes.
for. I'm not gonna go into like a spoiler territory, but no, I also loved that we went through just, I mean, it demonstrates, yes, he's taken on pretty much any single role offered, but it has also given him a very, very diverse, like all over the place filmography. I mean, Nicholas Cage has been in every genre, every animation, it doesn't matter, every type of film, a religious film. I watched him in this weird religious plane movie at one point over the past decade that I cannot even
Huh.
remember the name of it. I mean, he has been in literally every kind of
I know.
movie.
He has. It's
who who
his
can do
career is pretty
this?
incredible.
Who else? That's one of the special things. Who else could we make a movie about them in this fashion? A movie that is a
No,
meta version of themselves in themselves. No one. Who else gets? Who
there
else
was
could do that?
okay. So there was another Ethan Hawke. I read this quote from Ethan Hawke saying that Nicolas Cage is the only contemporary actor who has done anything new with acting um in like the modern age.
Yeah.
So talking about like so has there's lots of stories about him being a crazy method actor and doing
Yeah.
weird method things. Like I think one of the things that I read, he in Wild at Heart is supposed to have a sex scene and he wanted warm yogurt poured on his toes so that he could get excited for an intimate scene, which is fucking weird. But the other thing is that he really has done a different sort of style because he's moved back away from that method acting and he goes almost into this representational style where he's just I mean part of it is the extra of it, but he is taking emotions and he is cranking them up to 10 and you see him in these situations and it's these almost troubadour performance, big stagey reactions. It reminds me, Nicolas Cage reminds me of like, this is what men in college do when they're trying to demonstrate that they are acting hard. Like they get really, really into it. And I'm giving these notes to people. I haven't had to do this as much here in adult world, but when I was working with like college age guys, it was listen, when you choose 10 you can't go anywhere from there. So start a little bit lower. But Nicolas Cage goes to 10 and manages to find like 11 and 13. Um, so also I read this apparently that so they talk about this in the film and I thought it was just a fucking joke. Oh no. Nicolas Cage has developed his own new style of acting he calls nouveau shamanic. And I find that fucking incredible. That like he read a book about the like correlation between like shamans and thespians and incorporated all of this into his like acting sort of his world. So Nicolas Cage is a crazy motherfucker, and I love that he is so open.
Yeah.
Um, to being
It,
weird and to going to 10 and to all like I think I don't want to be crazy here, but it's almost like so I think about like Picasso, right?
mhm.
So like Picasso, if you go to the Picasso Museum, you can look and you can see that Picasso has the technical like skill to make a hyper realistic painting. Picasso couldn't do that. But then he starts to break it down in his other paintings as he goes through, and he's really exploring these concepts and this art and sort of making cubism and moving into these other different periods. And then at some point he got into African mass, and that was a mistake. But he, I, I would draw this correlation to Nicolas Cage and his approach to acting is that it seems like he understands the method acting. He understands how to get inside of a character. He understands how to feel the emotions and to convey truth. But then he's like taken that and he has broken it down into so many other different places and made it the cubist version of acting, where it's like you have the core, like he has this reality, like you believe that he's upset about things, like you believe his real emotions. It's just somehow also representational on top of it. It's also this fake version on top of reality, this performative version of the emotion on top of the genuine emotion. But anyways, back to this film, to this the unbearable weight of massive talent.
No, I love
he is massively
also
talented, and
the moments of him just being like referencing the like special features on the Blu-rays throughout the movie. Pedro Pascal just being like, no, you're the better driver. I saw that you did all your own stunts for Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yes.
That's not true. That's not what the special featurettes had to say about this. And those were just like, again, moments I lived for. So one thing people are talking about,
their chemistry with each other was very good. Oh, yes. One thing they're talking about.
So one thing people are talking about is that they enjoyed the film quite a bit, but they really wish they had cut out the CIA through storyline, and that the film just would have been better if we had just had the two of them all weekend.
No. Okay, and here's why. Because that's part of the whole Nick Caginess of it. Is it cycles back around and becomes a Nick Cage film. This film is like you've taken a bunch of Nick Cage films and you've mushed them all together. So there's the comedy, there is that you kind of surrealism, there's the reality. He has his moments of being drunk and really like too drunk, his real like crying, his and then it sort of moves into his like Con Air days and his face-off action movie days, and it becomes a Nick Cage film. It's necessary to get the full scope of the ridiculousness of Nick Cage to like make this movie be a reflection of the larger than life persona that is Nicolas Cage.
Also, I think they work it into the script really well. I think the meta-ness that the script has with the CIA stuff being there, it's funny. And I think they get quite a few jokes out of that as well.
Oh my God. The scene with the nerve agent is so incredible. That is this movie, I will say, what's great about this movie is like, so that's a scene that just like it's physical comedy, and I read in an interview that like part of the reason that Nick Cage decided to sign up for this is because it was a comedy, and he hasn't done a comedy like a full like there's lots of Nick Cage films that are like funny but they're not comedies. This one is like funny, and he wanted to like remind people that he can do comedy too. And he does. He kills it. And he also there's so many different types of comedy. There's like witty comedy, and then there's physical comedy. The physical comedy with the nerve agent is so good. I lived.
I think this is the best Tiffany Haddish. Like, I thought she was enjoyable. She's not in it too much. That's the other thing. I don't think if the CIA stuff had gotten in the way of Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal's like just funny shit that they were doing, then yes, I would agree it was not needed, but it doesn't get in the way. It just adds, like you said, an extra layer to everything, and it was enjoyable. Like I thought Tiffany Haddish was fun enough, as was, oh god, I'm blanking on the guy's name. He basically didn't even need to be in the film because he doesn't do a thing. Ike Barinholtz, there we go. He doesn't do anything. Tiffany Haddish's little partner, but I don't know. I thought it was really funny. This is actually the most I've laughed, I feel like, in a while. with the film.
Yes.
I think it
Yes.
was really
As I've
funny.
said, many comedy films are not actually funny. There's also something they really talk about. This Tiffany Haddish even has this whole thing. I mean, it's also meta. There's a whole
Yes.
thing where they're trying to write this film, and she's trying to get him to find out about a kidnapping that's happening. And she's like, "Why don't you try and suggest putting it into the film?" And Nick Cage's character is like, "Ah, that wouldn't make, he's gonna see right through it because that wouldn't make any sense in the context of my film." So this is what's great about this. They anticipated the haters being like, "I don't like the CIA line." And they literally in the film they talk about why they added this part of it. And then it made me think about how, like, yeah, you don't get like comedies, like they have a whole joke about how like, you're just not going to be able to sell it unless it's a Marvel film or it's a sequel,
Star
or
Wars.
yes, yes. And so she has to like sell him like, "Oh, well, you got to have the hook of the
We
kidnapping
need
and
a
the
trailer
action
moment.
film." Like, I would, you need a trailer moment. Yes, I would love to watch a thoughtful, real film about real people, but that's not your average moviegoer. And right, it's so self-referential, even down to like the people that are watching it in the movie theater right now are like, "Yes, this is true. We would not be. I would wait for this for streaming." If not for the fun, like action. I mean, I wouldn't have waited for streaming because I think Nick Cage is worth seeing on the big screen if he's being ridiculous in the way that he is in this film. Yeah, it just seemed like it was going to be a fun film from the beginning, and it absolutely was. But I think it's funny that people complaining about the CIA thing because they literally addressed it in the film. They
And
already told you
And of
why.
course, being meta, I feel like, the last few years, maybe probably since Deadpool, really kind of sparked the trend. I mean, yes, we've had Scream since 1999, but I feel like not another, or 95, but not another series really jumped on it like that after Scream for a while. Like other series weren't like, oh, we've got to be meta about ourselves. But it feels like after Deadpool, a lot of other series really were like, okay, we got to really, oh, this meta thing. Yes. So I feel like it's become a lot more popular to varying degrees. Whereas I think this film really nailed it for me. And that's why, I mean, the CIA stuff just works within the context of the script. They integrate that meta humor really, really well into the screenplay itself. I think it was well done. So I liked it. I had fun. And I was just having fun,
Yes.
period.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yes,
but
it's just a fun day at the movies. It is, yeah. It's super delightful. I enjoy it thoroughly.
I do.
Um,
So,
but like I
what are
did want
like
to
your
tell you
fave? Oh, sorry.
sorry,
Go ahead.
of Nicolas Cage movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to tell you a fun fact I learned about
Okay.
Nicolas Cage that I thought you would enjoy.
Uh oh.
I read a GQ article, interview that they did with Nick Cage like a month ago. But first of all, I read apparently Nicolas Cage is one of the biggest philanthropist celebrities in the world. That he just like donates crazy amounts of money, and I had no idea. He got like a Amnesty International gave him like an award because of how much he just donates, which is really great. But you'll love this. So when the guy from the GQ article went to interview him, he had all kinds of extra pets in his house because a local pet shop had gone out of business, and so Nicolas Cage bought all of the extra pets that were now living in his house. And he's like, "My job's just to feed them and care for them and make sure they have a comfortable life." And like, I just knew that would warm your little heart. So, like, I think that's the thing I want to point out about Nicolas Cage is that I think that it is easy to imagine him as this big, absurd, crazy, out of touch with reality movie star. And he is, but he's also a kind, thoughtful,
Yeah.
decent human being that has had lots of rough things happen, has like made poor choices and has had to cope with that. But he's an eccentric. I think that is the best way to describe him. He is
Yeah.
a full on eccentric human being. But I think that's what makes him brilliant and makes him iconic. He is an iconic actor.
Yes.
He's just super underrated, and there's something incredible about the fact that his filmography is so vast and ridiculous and amazing.
So yeah,
I will never
speaking on
forget
that
the first
filmography,
like
what are your top
five
ones, Ren?
minutes. I will never. I was gonna say I will never forget the first 5 minutes of Ghost Rider. That is a ridiculous scene. Um, for anybody who hasn't seen Ghost Rider, I'm not really. It's not really a spoiler, but basically, in the very first 5 minutes, he's just been released from hell, so he is having sex with a prostitute, and then somebody busts into his room, and as he continues having sex with the prostitute, he ends up shooting a whole bunch of guys and having a whole action scene. There's flames and all kinds of other crazy shit while he is having sex with a prostitute. It's just so incredibly ridiculous. I think that is like one of my top Nicolas Cage absurd scenes. Like that's I don't think there is anyone of his celebrity caliber that can point to any more ridiculous of a scene they have shot in a film. And I commend him for that. Favorite Nicolas Cage movies. I mean, as I said, Leaving Las Vegas is an incredible film. I would not call it like my favorite. It's
Okay.
it I mean it's an incredible performance. It is also really depressing. It's
Yes.
not a joyful film. It's not a thing I want to watch over and over again. So I would say it is, there's reasons why he was nominated and also reasons why I wouldn't want to watch it again. You know, let's see. I actually I really liked this movie. I think this would go
Yeah.
pretty high on my list of age films. Face Off is incredible, and they talk about it a lot in this movie, but like I think Face Off and a lot of people who are Nick Cage like crazy people would agree that that's kind of like quintessential just like Nick Cage at his peak
Yeah.
with the ridiculousness and the kind of like hamminess, but with the reality. He gets to play these two different
Yeah.
characters, and it's just so crazy. Because right, Ghost Rider and Wicker Man, those are just bad and over the top. Face Off is like it fits in a strange way. It's also very appropriate for like the time period of
Yeah.
it. Um, so I actually rewatched this film with Nicolas Cage recently that I realized I really like as a
Oh.
Christmas movie. It's Family Man. I don't like almost nobody has seen it.
Wait, I'm
It
pretty
did not do
positive.
very well at the box office. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's
Family
a
Man is
what,
the
like
one
90s?
where
It's from the 90s, right?
the 90s, like yeah, like 1995 or something, maybe a little later. But it's like it's like a Christmas Carol meets Groundhog Day, sort of. Basically, an angel shows him what his life would look like if he had not broken up with the love of his life. Um, and he has to start living in a life where he's just a dude living in the suburbs with his wife instead of like this big, high-powered executive. Um, and it's pretty delightful. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's
Okay.
really, really sweet, and I like it a lot. What? It's a hard question. I would say I'm not like a great, it's not like Michelle Yeoh, where I've apparently
Yeah.
seen like almost everything in her filmography.
Well, like
Also,
I
it's
said, the past
super duper
decade has
hard.
just been nuts. So,
Yeah, it's super duper hard for a person to have seen every single thing that
Nicholas
he's
Cage
done. I
says
let's
one,
see, what
two,
else
three,
did I really
four. He
like?
released 6 films in 2019.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, I
nuts.
Con Air is really good. I would rank that one pretty high.
You're a Gone in
Um,
60 Seconds person, Ren.
Not really. It's fine. I mean, it's a great example of Nick Cage at his Nick Cageiest.
The
I really like all the
Rock.
National Treasure movies. The Rock, I haven't seen that in so long. I know it's supposed to be really good. I just haven't seen it in a long time. So I can't really give a strong opinion on it. But I do fucking love me some National Treasure. I'm
To
not
say a
gonna
lot,
lie.
most people who grew up around our age are fond of National Treasure. I feel like
Mhm.
people who are a little older, maybe not as much. I don't know. I feel like it gets like hate. I don't know why, but I like National Treasure too. So
Hey.
I also love Face Off. I don't
Just because,
know.
well,
Face Off, I think you're right. It's just, it's so, like, the concept is so wild. And you have John
it
Travolta
is.
and Nicolas Cage opposite each other playing one another. And I mean, it's so crazy, but I have just always loved Face Off. It's
It's also,
probably my
it feels
favorite
like it's
Nicolas Cage movie.
it also feels like, yeah, it also feels like kind of quintessential that time period of
Yeah.
film. Like it just feel like when John Travolta and Nicolas Cage were in their action movie prime
Yeah.
and action movies were like that,
Yeah.
that was Face Off.
Did
So
you see
yeah,
Pig from
so
last year?
I did, but you said it was real good.
Yes, I loved Pig.
I heard good things.
And Nicolas Cage actually
It was
was
good.
really
Okay.
good in that film.
So I was just gonna say really quick, the reason why people give National Treasure flack is the same reason that they give shit for any of Nicolas Cage's films, is that like they don't like the cheesiness of it, the like it's that representation that it's about the fun and the ridiculousness, and he knows how to lean into absurdity and ridiculousness in a way that I think makes these films more enjoyable if
Yeah.
you appreciate that. But if you don't, if you want a serious, if you want a serious film about finding treasure through a series of clues from the founding fathers, National Treasure is not your movie.
I mean,
But I don't know why you would want a serious film about that. Like I think that film was the tone on that movie was perfect. I don't think it should be any less ridiculous. You could visit our July 4th of July episode where I go into depth on how much I enjoy that film and think it's it's a top patriotic film.
have you seen The Croods and The Croods
Um
2 or no?
I haven't. I heard those were good too.
Yeah,
Have
they're
you?
pretty solid little animated films actually. So those are some of the more top
Good.
tier
Good.
movies he's made over the past decade or so.
Oh, also, he was the voice of Spider-Man Noir in Into the Spider-Verse, so obviously that is also up
He was
there
also
on
in
my
he also was
favorites.
Superman in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which was surprisingly a good little film as well. So his animation game is actually pretty good. So,
Good animation.
and maybe
He
that
sounded
is
good.
because
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, he's able to lean into that and the other films that people have loved, like Mandy over the past few years. What was that other like wild one? Willy's Wonderland. He's found these crazy movies that he can just unleash, Color Out of Space even, and I think that's definitely helped his um status as this like cult love of the internet. What Mom and
Yeah.
Dad is nuts as well. But they were all like
I
fun.
I don't I don't know if Nicolas Cage is good at picking roles for him or he's good at turning roles he picks into Nicolas Cage masterpieces. I don't I don't know if it's chicken or the egg or what.
Wait, okay, so you
But
you
there's
always talk
something
about
about like
your horror blind spot, Ren. Have you seen The Wicker Man?
I haven't. I've only seen the scene.
The Scene. Everyone has seen The Scene.
Yes, yes.
I mean, honestly,
I've seen the scene.
I don't love the original Wicker Man all that much either. So I'm gonna just say that. So it's not like a sacrilege to this amazing horror classic to me, but if anything, it made it more memorable.
Matchstick Men.
Yeah.
That's another good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Matchstick Men is like it's actually like a good film. That was really enjoyable, and it's not Matchstick Men is an example of Nicolas Cage when he's not being cagey
Yes. Yeah.
when he's just acting, when he's really leaning into like and like there's still a little bit of that like absurdity, right? Because it's the character has that obsessive compulsive disorder, so but um it doesn't read in the extremity that he often brings to a lot of roles. It's more, and I think that's what I really like about him is he's he's got range, man. He seems to choose the style of acting that is appropriate to the role and to the film and to the tone of what he's doing. Not always, right? Sometimes he's like this crazy man in a room,
Yeah.
but it does seem like he doesn't just do the same Nicolas Cage thing every single time. And I don't I can't think of a lot of other actors that I could point to that have that same ability to be ridiculous and over the top or authentic equally viably
Yeah.
in the depending on the film, that are able to match their performance and match their style to the film that they're in.
Yeah. I
It
actually have
seems
to
like a
say,
lot like
I'm really excited to see him play Dracula in this upcoming film Reinfeld.
Renfield.
Renfield, sorry, um, by Chris McKay. It just, I don't know. That seems like exactly what I need.
Oh my God. Sorry, I just clicked on it and saw the
Yes,
picture of him, and goddamn, that looks incredible.
like
Yep,
so. I'm
that's
here
gonna be
for.
really good.
We had Pig last year, which did get a lot of critical acclaim, and was like a little bit of a return for Nicolas Cage being taken a little bit more seriously, maybe. Then we have this film, which just personifies him in the way that we all have personified him. And I feel
Uh-huh.
like maybe we're on that cusp. I know he's never went anywhere. Clearly, if you look at his IMDb, I mean, this is a working actor. But I feel like maybe we're on the
Yes.
cusp of a more widely spread appreciation of the just unique everything that Nicolas Cage has brought to film and brought to the art,
I think
period.
we are. I think considering he is now allowed to, he doesn't need to just take every job that comes at him to pay back his massive debt. I think we can look forward to a bit of a Nick Cage renaissance, where he really gets to lean into uh, who he is as an actor and a performer. And I think also it's this cult following, this appreciation for who he is. You know, he was. It took a long time for the internet to properly vocalize, to write out,
Yeah.
to explain what it was about him, because he just got panned a lot, right? He just got like that movie was bad. It was horrible. Why is Nick Cage so ridiculous? He's a crazy person. Oh my God, what an absurd human being. Blah 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 blah. But now the internet has we I think the internet has helped us all embrace the weird, embrace and love the weird, and he is going to benefit from the affections of the internet, I think, long term. I don't think there's anybody, I can't think of anybody that is quite, maybe Betty White. Um, I mean, Betty White has recently passed away, but that quite has that like cult of personality,
Yeah.
um,
And that's, I mean, that's good
in the same way
company
that
to be.
Nicolas Cage does. Yeah, I mean, okay, so like, I mean, like, this, the Nick Cage, so in the unbearable weight of massive talent, in his like Nick Cage memorabilia room, he has one of those pillows that are the sequins, but it has Nick Cage's face on it, and he's like, that's just weird and creepy, and but like, I've seen Nick Cage merchandise, right? Like, it's not Ghost Rider merchandise. It's not, whatever.
National treasure.
It's like him. Yes, it is him. So yeah, and I can't think of any. I don't know. Can you think of any other actors that have the same sort of like,
No.
I think like Bob Ross is another one who just like know by sight, and like there's a certain amount of like merchandising just with his personality.
And I
But
guess it's a lot of people who, I mean, Bob Ross was, obviously different, but a lot of those like older icons that maybe were a little misunderstood as well when they were out, and people just kind of looked at them as some sort of joke for a long time. And we've just come back around to like this appreciation of them, and this appreciation of just being different. I think it's a general thing of this generation.
yes.
We appreciate people just being different. We don't need the same actor across the board in every role. Sometimes you need some freaking Nicolas Cage injected into things, and
Yeah.
we're glad
We
people did
love
not bully
ourselves
him
a
out of the
rebel.
industry.
To be fair, we have to acknowledge that he is part of the Coppola family, which is, that does certainly give him a little bit of extra
So what do you think?
leeway in Hollywood. But
When will his counterpart, who has also for about a decade taken on less than good roles, Mr. John Travolta,
Kevin
get a
Bacon.
comeback?
Oh, John Travolta.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Kevin Bacon, who Kevin Bacon is similarly in a crazy amount of movies that span a wide genre because he had terrible financial issues. I don't think John Travolta is going to be able to make a comeback. So one of the things Nicolas Cage is he doesn't talk about religion. He doesn't like get too deeply into his like philosophy stuff. He is very much all about like my movies speak for themselves, like it's a lot easier. He specifically is like he like donates a lot of money, but he isn't an activist actor because he feels like he can do a better job of like getting people motivated and mobilized through his films, which I really agree with. I'm all about that. Like I'm a big fan of, rather than hitting people over the head with your messaging, it's much more effective to trick them through entertainment. But I don't think John Travolta will ever be able to do that because John Travolta is a crazy ass Scientologist and he's very vocal about that. And there's a lot of problems with Scientology. And Nicolas Cage is self-aware in a way that John Travolta is not. John Travolta is a crazy character, but he doesn't realize that he is a crazy character. So he is still playing it like he is a great actor. He buys into his own delusion in the way that I don't think Nicolas Cage does.
Did you ever see Gotti?
I think Nicolas I I did not see Gotti. I did start watching The People versus O.J. Simpson, and I was like, no, thank you.
I mean, I guess that's true. Also, I mean, John Travolta definitely started off as more of a sex symbol. So I think there was a certain vanity of John Travolta
Yeah.
that Nicolas Cage has never, I mean, he had people who thought he was good looking, whatever, but he was never really like the sex symbol of his heyday, even in his action times. I don't really think Nicolas Cage has never been compared to John Travolta, who early in his career, he was very pretty, and that did a lot for him in the roles he was in.
Man, young John Travolta is like a looker, right? Like I was watching the Look Who's Talking Now. Just watch those movies again. Is like, woo! That dimple in the chin was like, hot damn.
Yeah, and he wasn't
blue eyes.
He was never trying to be too serious an actor. Even then, he was just kind of coasting on being very attractive, and that's what it was. And he tried to become serious. And it's interesting that something like Battleship Earth doesn't completely and totally humble you down to the dirt. And for some reason, John Travolta just keeps trucking with this delusion. Even
that's what I'm saying. I just don't think he's the same. I really have a hard time thinking of any actor that is like a full, like a realistic counterpart to Nicolas Cage. There's just, I don't think like the only I can kind of say like Kevin Bacon, if we're just looking at like scope of filmography, there's some overlap there. They were both kind of like around in the same time frame. There's lots of fun, like weird little cameos, right? Nicolas Cage was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is another good film I liked with Nicolas Cage, but it feels weird to put that in the list because he's like not really in it.
Yeah.
Valley Girl. Oh, I liked Valley Girl too. I thought that was a cute movie. I also hate Romeo and Juliet storylines, but it's at the beginning of him being like, wow, a lot, which is kind of great. But anyways, I don't think that there is
There's
A
no
rough
one else like
equivalent.
Nicolas
Maybe
Cage.
somebody
You are
will get
truly
there.
an original.
No,
Truly.
he is an original.
Well, that was
Yeah, I was thinking. I
our-
was like, even
oh,
like,
sorry.
yeah. Oh, sorry. I was like, maybe Ryan Reynolds. No, Ryan Reynolds does the same thing all the time. It's
Yeah.
adorable and we love it. And Ryan Reynolds might get like a little bit of he's a little bit of like a cult of personality, but it's just not the same as Nicolas Cage. Like Ryan Reynolds isn't doing anything new and
No.
incredible with performance. Nicolas Cage is a walking theatrical explosion.
All
And
right.
on that note, this has been our podcast.
Woo! All right. Well, that was it. That was our review for the massive weight of unbearable talent. I hope you all enjoyed it and our discussion on Nick Cage himself. If you did, make sure to hit that like on whatever platform you're listening.
The unbearable weight of massive talent.
Yes.
Sorry. I just had to.
Very fun.
Sorry. You said it wrong.
The very long.
Why are all
word
of the
title.
names so long this
Too
year?
much. It's too much for me, honestly. But make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Ren, where can people find you?
You can find me at Ren Manley on Twitter or at RennyPoo13 on Instagram.
And you can find me at ChiliBoyYT on Twitter and Chili Boy Productions on Instagram and YouTube. Thank you all for listening again, and we'll catch you on the next one.